Versailles time slip. It was a suffocating August afternoon in 1901 when two English academics entered the gardens of Versailles, expecting nothing more than a quiet escape from their daily lives. Charlotte and Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain were scholars, women trained in logic, discipline, and critical thinking. As senior figures at Oxford, they had little patience for fantasy. Yet what unfolded near the Petit Trianon would leave them questioning the very nature of time. As they searched for the small chateau, something changed. The air grew heavy, oppressively still. Sound seemed to drain from the world around them. Even the landscape looked wrong, flattened, like a painted stage set rather than a living garden. Then they noticed the figures. Two men stood nearby, dressed in long gray-green coats, wearing small three-cornered hats. They appeared to be gardeners, but not from any era Moberly or Jourdain recognized. A short distance away, a man with a deeply scarred, unsettling face sat motionless beside a small kiosk, staring into nothing. The feeling shifted from unease to dread. Moments later, they saw her. A woman sat quietly on the grass, sketching. She wore a wide-brimmed white hat and a pale summer dress, graceful, delicate, and eerily out of place. She glanced up at them briefly, her expression distant, almost haunted. Then, without warning, a door slammed shut. A footman burst from a nearby building, and in that instant, everything snapped back to normal. The oppressive atmosphere vanished. The gardens were alive again. Tourists wandered past. The year was unmistakably 1901. At first, they dismissed the experience. But months later, curiosity turned into investigation. They began studying old maps, architectural plans, and eyewitness accounts of the Petit Trianon. What they found disturbed them. The bridge they remembered no longer existed in 1901, but had stood in the late 18th century. The kiosk matched historical records. Even the pathways aligned with Versailles as it existed before the French Revolution. And the woman sketching? They became convinced she was Marie Antoinette herself, seen in the final quiet days before August 1792, before the monarchy collapsed into bloodshed. In 1911, the two women published their account in a book titled An Adventure, using pseudonyms but presenting their findings with academic care. They insisted this was not a ghost story. They believed they had walked into a surviving fragment of the past, a moment preserved in time. Skeptics proposed simpler explanations: heat exhaustion, confusion, or perhaps an elaborate costume gathering hosted by the eccentric Count Robert de Montesquieu, known for theatrical events at Versailles. Others suggested a shared psychological illusion, where one person's perception subtly shaped the other's. Yet one problem remains. No reenactment was ever documented that day, and no coincidence explains how two rational scholars described the same impossible details with such clarity. So what truly happened in those gardens? Did they imagine history? Or did time itself briefly lose its grip at Versailles? John Titor legend. At the dawn of the new millennium, when the internet still felt like unexplored territory, a strange voice appeared from the digital shadows. In November of 2000, an anonymous user began posting on obscure online forums. First under the name Time Travel Zero. Later, he gave himself a real identity: John Titor. His claim was simple and unbelievable. He said he was an American soldier from the year 2036, sent back in time on a military mission. Not to stop a war, not to save the world, but to retrieve an old computer. According to Titor, his mission centered on the IBM 5100, a bulky portable machine released in 1975. He claimed it contained a hidden capability, one that allowed it to emulate and debug legacy computer systems. In his future, this obscure feature was essential to solving a catastrophic software failure known as the year 2038 problem. A disaster, he said, that threatened global systems. The year 2000, he explained, was only a stop along the way. He was visiting family, recovering personal items lost in a coming conflict. And that's when his story turned dark. Titor warned that the United States was heading toward collapse. A civil war, beginning in 2004, escalating into open conflict by 2008. The country would fracture into 5 regions, governed by opposing ideologies. That internal chaos, he said, would lead to something far worse. In 2015, a short but devastating world war. Nuclear weapons exchanged. Cities erased. 3 billion people dead. The planet permanently scarred. To support his claims, Titor offered something few hoaxers ever had: details. He described his time machine as a C-204 gravity distortion unit, mounted in the back of a 1977 Chevrolet Corvette. He posted scanned images of technical manuals, complete with diagrams, equations, and dense terminology about microsingularities and gravity wells. He spoke calmly, methodically, patiently. For 4 months, he answered questions from thousands of users. He gave warnings about the physical toll of time travel, explained why timelines could diverge, claimed that small changes didn't erase futures, only shifted them sideways. Then, on March 24, 2001, he posted one final message. His mission was complete. John Titor said goodbye and vanished. He was never heard from again. As years passed, his predictions failed to come true. No civil war in 2004. No nuclear exchange in 2015. Investigations later suggested the persona was likely created by 1 or 2 individuals, possibly brothers from Florida, with backgrounds in computing and law. Yet one detail refused to go away. The IBM 5100 really did possess a little-known emulation function, something barely documented and rarely discussed at the time. A fact John Titor mentioned years before it became common knowledge. And that's why the legend endured. Because even if John Titor wasn't a time traveler, his story felt authentic, detailed, lived in, a reflection of a world anxious about technology, war, and an uncertain future. So the question remains, was John Titor a man from 2036? Or was he simply the first great time traveler the internet ever created? Time Traveler Hipster. In the digital age, it only takes one image to ignite a global mystery. This one dates back to 1941. The photograph was taken at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Men in fedoras, women in neatly pressed dresses, a crowd frozen in mid-conversation. Then your eye finds him. Standing among the onlookers is a man who doesn't seem to belong. While everyone else looks unmistakably 1940s, he appears almost modern. Too modern. He's wearing what looks like a printed shirt beneath an open sweater. Dark, wraparound-style sunglasses. A casual haircut that feels decades ahead of its time. And most striking of all, he's holding a small, handheld camera, nothing like the bulky, boxy models you'd expect from that era. Online, he quickly earned a nickname: the Time Traveling Hipster. To believers, the image was a smoking gun. A visitor from the future accidentally caught on film. His relaxed posture, his effortless confidence, even the way he holds the camera, everything about him seems out of sync with the moment. The photo spread rapidly, shared as proof that time travel wasn't science fiction, it was history. But when historians looked closer, the mystery began to unravel. Every single item the man wore could be traced to the early 20th century. The sunglasses, while modern in shape, were already being produced in similar styles as early as the 1920s. The supposed logo shirt was likely a wool sweater with a stitched emblem, common for sports teams and workwear at the time. Even the camera wasn't impossible. Compact folding cameras, like the Kodak Pocket series, had been around for decades and were popular with amateurs. Lightweight, portable, perfect for casual events like a bridge reopening. Nothing in the photo violated the technology of 1941. What made the image feel wrong wasn't the man. It was our expectation of the past. We imagine history as uniform. Everyone dressed the same. Everyone followed the rules of their era. But real life has always included nonconformists, early adopters, people who valued comfort over tradition. The so-called time traveler may have simply been a man ahead of his time in style, not in years. Which raises an unsettling thought. If this wasn't proof of time travel, how many other anomalies exist only because we misunderstand history itself? And if our assumptions can fool us this easily, what else might we be misreading when we look into the past? Rudolph Fentz case. It's one of the most haunting time travel stories ever told. The year was 1951. The place, Times Square. In the middle of New York's roaring traffic, a man suddenly appeared. Witnesses said he looked completely lost. Terrified. He wore a long frock coat, polished button-up shoes, and a tall black top hat, fashioned straight out of the 1800s. He stared upward at the skyscrapers, at the flashing lights, at the speeding cars that didn't exist in his world. Before anyone could reach him, he stepped off the curb. A taxi struck him instantly, killing him on the spot. But the real mystery, according to the legend, began at the morgue. Police allegedly searched his pockets and found items that made no sense in 1951. A copper token for a 5-cent beer. A bill for the care of a horse and carriage. Old banknotes no longer in circulation. A letter dated June 1876. And business cards bearing the name Rudolph Fentz. None of the items showed signs of age. The investigation supposedly led detectives to a city directory from 1876. There, they found a man named Rudolph Fentz listed at a matching address. When police visited the location, they were told something chilling. Rudolph Fentz had vanished without explanation in 1876 after leaving for his evening walk. The implication was irresistible. A man had stepped out of his 19th-century home and strayed into the future. For decades, the story was repeated as a genuine case of accidental time travel. It appeared in paranormal books, documentaries, and articles, always presented as fact, until someone decided to check. In the year 2000, folklore researcher Chris Aubeck began tracing the story to its roots. What he found was silence. No police records. No newspapers. No evidence that Captain Hubert V. Rhea ever existed within the NYPD. And no death matching the story in 1951. Eventually, the truth surfaced. The entire tale came from a short science fiction story published in 1951 titled I'm Scared, written by author Jack Finney, the same writer who would later create Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Over time, the fictional origin was forgotten. Details were repeated, polished, and exaggerated. And somewhere along the way, a piece of imaginative storytelling transformed into supposed historical fact. The Rudolph Fentz case isn't proof of time travel. It's proof of something else. That stories themselves can travel through time, changing shape, gaining credibility, and becoming real in the minds of those who want to believe. And if one invented time traveler could fool generations, how many others might still be hiding in plain sight? Chaplin phone woman. In 2010, a filmmaker noticed something no one had questioned for more than 80 years. Irish director George Clark was watching bonus footage from Charlie Chaplin's 1928 silent film The Circus. The clip showed crowds gathered outside Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, laughing, chatting, soaking in the excitement of a movie premiere. Then the camera drifted past one woman. She was walking alone, dressed in a long dark coat and a cloche-style hat. Nothing unusual, until you notice her hand. She's holding a thin black object to the side of her head. Her lips are moving. She appears to be talking. To modern eyes, the image is unmistakable. She looks like someone using a cell phone. Clark uploaded the short clip online, and it detonated across the internet. Frame by frame. Zoomed in. Slowed down. Millions watched the woman seemingly chatting into a device that shouldn't exist for another half-century. How could someone in 1928 be casually using what looked like mobile technology? Believers called it the clearest time travel evidence ever captured on film. Some suggested a visitor from the future blending into the crowd. Others proposed something even stranger, an alien communicator hidden in plain sight. And the woman's behavior only fueled the mystery. She isn't posing. She isn't reacting to the camera. She looks natural, engaged, as if this strange object in her hand is completely normal. But history offers a quieter explanation. By the 1920s, early electronic hearing aids already existed. Companies were experimenting with portable designs, small carbon microphones and receivers that required users to hold devices close to their ears to amplify sound. To someone unfamiliar with the technology, it could look exactly like a phone call. Her moving lips? That, too, has an explanation. People with hearing difficulties often speak aloud to gauge their own volume. Or she may have been reacting to sounds she could suddenly hear clearly in the noisy crowd. And the sleek, phone-like appearance? That's the trick of old film. Grainy black and white footage flattens details, making bulky objects appear thinner and more modern than they truly were. What looks like a smartphone may have been a life-changing medical device. The mystery of Chaplin's so-called time traveler isn't about someone visiting the past. It's about how easily modern expectations reshape old images, how we project our technology backward and mistake coincidence for impossibility. But this wouldn't be the last time strange technology appeared where it didn't seem to belong. Because just 15 years later, the U.S. military would be accused of something far more disturbing than a misplaced phone call. An experiment that allegedly made an entire ship disappear. Future self-encounter. In August 2006, a story surfaced from Sweden that seemed to offer something time travel believers had waited decades for. Video proof. A man named Håkan Nordqvist claimed he had done the impossible, not by stepping into a machine, but by fixing a leaky pipe beneath his kitchen sink. According to him, the space under the cabinet didn't end where it should have. As he crawled inside with his tools, the darkness stretched farther and farther, forming what felt like a tunnel. Then, at the end, he saw a light. When he emerged, he was still in his kitchen, but it wasn't the same kitchen. Nordqvist claimed the year was now 2042. Standing in front of him was an elderly man in his 70s. The two locked eyes, and the similarities were impossible to ignore. Same voice, same expressions, same way of speaking, and on the man's arm, a tattoo, identical to his own. Nordqvist said he was staring at himself, decades older. The two supposedly sat down and talked, compared memories, spoke about life choices and regrets. A conversation between past and future. And then came the proof. Nordqvist pulled out his phone and recorded a short video. In the clip, he sits beside the older man. They both raise their arms toward the camera, clearly revealing the same tattoo in the same place. The footage spread rapidly. Here, people said, was the first recorded meeting between a man and his future self. Personal, emotional, visually undeniable. For a moment, it felt like the mystery was solved. Until it wasn't. The entire story, from the leaking pipe to the encounter in 2042, was fiction, a carefully constructed illusion. The video was part of a viral marketing campaign created for a Swedish pension and insurance company called AMF. The project was titled The Pension of the Future, designed to make young people think seriously about aging and retirement. The message was simple: it's easier to plan for tomorrow if you can meet yourself there. The older future Nordqvist was a professional actor. The matching tattoos were created by a skilled makeup team. And Håkan Nordqvist himself? A real person, fully aware of the stunt. The campaign won awards and became a case study in modern advertising. But it also proved something unsettling. In the age of video, a convincing story can feel more real than reality itself, especially when it plays on our deepest curiosity. Because maybe the most powerful time machine isn't hidden under a sink. It's a story that makes us believe we've already seen the future. Swiss ring watch. In December 2008, a story emerged from China that seemed to defy history itself. Archaeologists, the reports claimed, were excavating a 400-year-old Ming Dynasty tomb in Shaanxi County. As they carefully cleaned the coffin's exterior, a tiny metallic object supposedly fell from the soil. When they picked it up, it appeared impossibly modern. A miniature ring watch, engraved with the word Swiss, its tiny face frozen at 10:06. The discovery went viral immediately. Social media buzzed. Conspiracy theorists and time travel enthusiasts saw what they wanted: undeniable proof of a time traveler. How else could a 100-year-old Swiss ring watch end up in a tomb sealed for 4 centuries? The tomb was said to be untouched, ruling out grave robbers. To believers, the explanation was clear. Someone from the future had lost it centuries ago. But the story quickly unraveled under scrutiny. No credible sources. No published papers. No official records from the supposed Zhang's Cultural Relics and Archaeology Research Institute. The archaeologists' names were never released. Photographs were low resolution, out of context, impossible to verify. Investigators traced the tale to a single Chinese news report. From there, it spread across the globe, amplified without confirmation. Most likely, the ancient Swiss ring watch was nothing more than an internet hoax. Perhaps a modern object was dropped near a dig, or a story was sensationalized to grab attention. Either way, the tale highlights a harsh truth about the digital age. A compelling mystery spreads faster than facts, and the internet eagerly devours anomalies, whether real or imagined. Sometimes, the anomaly isn't the artifact. It's the story we choose to believe. Montauk Project. The Montauk Project, an alleged series of secret military experiments at Camp Hero, Long Island. According to urban legends, in the 1970s and 80s, the U.S. government conducted experiments that went far beyond anything publicly admitted. Time travel, teleportation, mind control. The story begins with a man named Andrew Carls. He claimed to have been a child recruited into the program. His memories, if true, describe a labyrinth of underground chambers, humming machinery, and a portal that could manipulate time itself. Carls said he witnessed objects vanishing into thin air, men and animals being teleported, and experiments on volunteers designed to bend perception and reality. One device, he claimed, could open a temporal window, allowing glimpses of both past and future events. As the tale spread online, former military personnel, conspiracy theorists, and paranormal investigators debated every detail. Sketches of the equipment, floor plans of the hidden bunkers, and alleged photographs were presented as proof. But no official documents exist. Camp Hero was real, but the fantastical descriptions, secret elevators, time portals, and mind-altering rays cannot be verified. Critics argue the story is a mix of Cold War paranoia, imaginative fiction, and misremembered experiments with radar and communications technology. Yet the allure remains. Montauk taps into a deep cultural fascination. What if the government could tamper with time? What if some of our own memories, or even our present, were experiments in a vast, unseen laboratory? Whether fact or legend, the Montauk Project is a story that keeps us wondering and questioning how far human curiosity and ambition might stretch across time. Time traveling car. Sometimes, evidence appears not in documents, but in the brushstrokes of history itself. In 19th century paintings and photographs, some observers noticed anachronisms. Most famous is the Eleanor's Time Traveler case, a 19th century street scene showing a car that seems far too modern for its time. The painting depicts a bustling city street. Horse-drawn carriages clatter across cobblestones. Street vendors shout, and among them, a sleek, shiny automobile, unlike anything that should exist in that era. Eyewitnesses decades later described it as a futuristic carriage, with wheels and body design eerily familiar to 20th century vehicles. For believers, it was proof a visitor from the future had left a footprint in the past. Skeptics offer more grounded explanations. Early prototypes of motorized vehicles did exist in the late 1800s. Artists, misinformed or inspired by sketches, may have included them unconsciously. Perspective, imagination, or simply coincidence could create the illusion of a modern car. Yet the image endures online, analyzed frame by frame, scanned and blown up to reveal every detail. The lines of the car, the shadow of its wheels, even the driver's posture, all scrutinized for signs of time travel. Whether a real glimpse of the future or just an accidental artistic quirk, the time-traveling car captures our fascination. It reminds us that sometimes history itself can seem to slip just slightly out of place, blurring the boundary between past and future. Time Traveler 1860. In 1860, a photograph was taken that would puzzle generations to come. It's a simple portrait of a crowded street. Men in top hats, women in bonnets, children playing along the cobblestones, and among them, a young woman who seems different. She wears a dress with a cut and style that feels modern. Her jewelry catches the sunlight in a way that resembles something manufactured decades later. And in her hand, she holds a small rectangular object, smooth, dark, and unlike anything else in the scene. The photo resurfaced in the 21st century, scanned, and shared widely online. Observers immediately compared her appearance to modern fashions, suggesting she was a visitor from the future, a real-life time traveler caught on film. Historians and fashion experts, however, note that some garments and accessories thought modern were in fact rare but authentic styles of the mid-19th century. Small boxes and devices, easily mistaken for phones or cameras, could have been compact books, calling cards, or even early mechanical tools. Yet the illusion is striking. Her posture, her confident stride, the object in her hand, all speak to the imagination of a modern viewer. A single frame becomes a bridge across centuries, inviting us to wonder whether time itself can bend, and whether we've ever glimpsed someone from the future walking among us. The Time Traveler of 1860 reminds us that the past is not always as simple as it seems, and sometimes the mystery is in our own perception. If these stories of time travelers and impossible mysteries fascinated you, don't let them fade into the shadows. Subscribe to Strange Wise and step into a world where history, the unexplained, and the impossible collide. Hit that notification bell, because every week we uncover the secrets that history tried to hide, and the mysteries that might just be happening around you right now. Dare to question reality. Dare to explore the unknown. Join us and see what others refuse to believe.